hello everyone. This is Amelia Vogler, grounding and energy medicine specialist, and your host in the Energy Magazine exclusive interview series. Today, we have a returning guest, Renee Baribeau. She's known as the practical shaman, a wind whistler, and I can't wait to have this conversation with Renee again. She's a go-to soul coach. She's funny. She invites practical wisdom all around her inspirational wind work. So Renee, welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Amelia, for it's lovely to sit with you. You're such a light soul. I just adore you.
Oh, well, you're such a windy soul and light and wind. I mean,
And
together we
Sambi's here too. She says hello to everyone.
hi Sambi. Maybe you're the earth, and maybe Veda here on the carpet can be our water, and we've just got it
That's well,
all.
Sambi means energy in Quechua.
How beautiful. Well, welcome, welcome to our conversation. So, Renee, I want to catch people up if they missed our first conversation. The wind. What is your work with the wind all about? Who are these wind spirits that you work with?
I think the wind spirits are a body of ancient ones, and I don't know if you can see it here, but I wrote a book called Winds of Spirit, which is published by Hay House. And what happened was I started to look at wind as a metaphor for, Mary Poppins blew in on an east wind, and Sherlock Holmes talked about an east wind. And, a lot of the lores have wind in them. And even all the way back to the Mesopotamia tablets, there's wind. And I thought, well, there must be a little bit more to this. And so I started this deep dive into researching the wind spirits around the world. And what it came to pass was that they didn't all have the same job description. The wind in Latvia was different than the wind in New Zealand. And I started to think, well, this is curious. Wind, would think would be wind. And then all of a sudden, the real magic happened when I started using my wind whistle, calling to these wind deities and these wind spirits. And they started to show up as ancient energies that had a lot of very valuable information for us at this time in this change on this planet.
Mm.
And
What is one of those messages that they told us? Like, if you could offer us one of those core wind messages of helping us navigate these times, what are you hearing?
well, I don't know that there's one core message, but I'm starting to work on my second book, and we're in a period, an interglacial period, when the world is heating up again. And it seems to be, if I can start to look at, and I'm kind of throwing this in off the cuff, that these wind spirits have come out at this particular time period, and probably 7,500, 10,000 years. They're not all the time.
Hmm.
They're not speaking up all the time, but the phrase winds of change, they come to help us during these times of winds of change. Now, there's not a primary quality of these winds, but that they have, like Dogoda is the Polish wind of compassion, and Beamate is a nourishing wind, and Ekatal is a wind of passion. So they're not so much about, messages of like, do this, do that. It's about a quality of beingness that you want to bring into your life. And so there's this quality of beingness of like, oh, I could really use the Evea Mate, a nurturing wind right now. So this idea of calling to this wind for nourishment is more revealing than getting a direct message, because we need to be nourished no matter what's happening.
Oh, I love that. And also these qualities, it sounds like each one of us being a unique being, calling forth this relationship with the wind spirit brings out our unique expression of these qualities so that we can, dance this big dance together.
Exactly.
Yeah. What outstanding work. And I have to say, you probably didn't hear it. It was pretty subtle. But as you were speaking, my wind chime started out here, and I wanted to look over, but I wanted to, stay with you in your conversation, but I could just tell that the trees and the leaves were also responding. So I feel, there's something to what you're saying here. That's the winds perhaps here are blowing in gratitude. So I know that today we're going to be moving our conversation in the direction of affirmations. And I'm curious what's the relationship between your wind work and an affirmation and affirmation work?
I think the affirmation work is what got me to the wind work in
Mm.
a very long roundabout way. And the article that I wrote in for the November December Energy magazine was about how when I was really in my 20s and early 30s, how I was struggling. And I found, Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And it was all about changing the way that we talk to the organs, changing the way that we related to our own illnesses and health. And I began to use that system for my own transformation. And so it's really been an integral part of how I healed enough to be able to hear the wind spirits many, many years later.
How beautiful. So in your life, you can say positive affirmations definitely work. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think that what they also help do is when I first got started, and I don't know where I got this idea, but I used to fill up legal pads with daily positive affirmations because we're talking about it was a rough start. And I would write the same, you are whole and complete exactly as you are. You are whole and complete 30 times. And if I wasn't feeling it the next day, I'd write it 30 more times. And I kept writing it and writing it and writing it because I understood from a psychiatrist how brain neurons fired a message. And so if the message is faulty, what happens is the faulty message gets fired. And in an addictive mind that I had, there was a lot of excess that wasn't needed from one response to the next because I could be pretty like OCD about it. And so that these recurring thoughts would go round and round.
Mm.
So somebody said something when I was in my late 20s that just made absolute sense about that you could form new grooves in your brain. So, and we're talking about 35 years ago. So I thought to myself like, oh, that's interesting. And so I actually visualized my brain as an LP record, which maybe a lot of listeners out even here don't even know what an LP record is, but that when an LP record has, a scratch, you really can't play that song over and over again. You need to get a new LP record or you need to create a new track for that. And so I figured this idea that positive affirmations could help create new grooves in my brain so that the old go-to thinking didn't occupy the space any longer.
Cool. And I think, just because we exist in so many dimensions, even that idea of like creating a new groove, it's so magical and yet so simple and powerful, just creating that new pathway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what an amazing experience to go through and then get to work with, be the beneficiary of that own practice and then see it successful in your own life. I just think it's so totally cool, Renee.
And there's even a greater, I mean, if you want to say like just desserts on the whole thing, is that 25, 30 years later, science finally caught up to this idea. And now that they're talking about it, and yesterday I got to meet a psychiatrist who was also like a forerunner in his thinking. And like him and like myself, we were like castaways with these ideas for a long, long time until we were just forerunners. And now his ideas of psychiatry and that, sometimes we're misdiagnosing people because they have a heart problem and not a schizophrenic problem is the same kind of new forward thinking that we're so resistant to look at because we get into our own patterns.
That's right. That's right. Well, my thought is that this conversation is probably going to air right around that time when we are all newly shifting into our own opportunities for new mindset as we kind of tick forward into 2023. So I'm wondering, what offerings do you have for us? A practice or a ceremony or just an idea based in your affirmation work that might help us really create some strong affirmations into the new year?
That's a great question. So first of all, I have to answer it from my shamanic perspective of that. For years, I would my biggest downloaded thing on my entire website is my vision board kit. I mean, it's been downloaded almost 100,000 times.
Wow.
All of a sudden, about 15, 20 years in, I realized this is just not the right time to be setting out with new goals. You get to the beginning of the new year, we're gonna I'm gonna set myself up and I'm ready to, lumberjack it out into the world, when the truth of the matter is from the time now to the time of the solstice, probably almost until the spring equinox, ideally we should be germinating our seeds.
That's right.
We shouldn't be growing them because they'll die in the cold winter. You know those tulips that come up early, or the crocuses, and the snow comes and then they die. And so if we looked at our lives more like a crocus, we would see that the seeds grow when the conditions are right. So that doesn't mean let's just celebrate until the equinox because there's nothing to do. But it's a really good time to prepare your earth and to tend to the seeds that you planted, or to tend to the harvest from the fall. So take a really good look at, what did I harvest in the fall that I am now going to replant, or am I going to till the earth for a year and let it rest, which we need those resting cycles as well. But to do the crafting, and so I was going to share a method with you of what we do to craft in the Wind Clan.
Yes, that sounds wonderful.
Okay, so instead of vision boards, and I still love my vision boards, and we make them at other times of the year, what we do now is I'm gonna just do something so you can see it. We make prayer flags. Whoops, they're backwards. And what we do is and I can send you a couple pictures of finished ones, but what we do is we do it even on Zoom. We get together as a group and we call to a wind spirit for each month. So there's kind of I got a chart so you don't get all confused on it. But so what I would do is I'd say, all right, and the wind spirit cards are a bag of wind was carried in bags and caves.
Oh.
And so this is a bag of wind spirit cards and you can download them on my website for free if you want to try this with your family or yourself. And then you pull to a card for each month. So say this was for January, I just pulled La Amoa Amoa, the Hawaiian wind for ancestors.
Mm.
And then if I wanted to, I might read in Winds of Spirit about Lamoa Amoa. But if I was what I'd really like to do is I'd like to call La Amoa Amoa to come here to help me understand how this wind would like to be put onto this flag. And then what you do is you take magic markers or fabric markers or paint, and you decorate your flags for the entire year. Then you hang them outside somewhere that you can watch them, and not somewhere where they're going to blow away the first week. And every month at the beginning, in fact, we had a wind ceremony today. where every month we call in at the beginning of the month this la moa moa with your wind whistle or your breath. And you do an invocation, so she comes, this energy that comes, and she came as soon as we called her. And I have to say something crazy. I'm having a series of wind spirit cards painted into bigger cards. And this morning she resent me the La Moa Moa that I haven't been resonating with. And so it's no simple surprise that this is what comes out of the wind pull for today. But back to this, so you hang them up, so you call to the wind for the beginning of the month. And so I can just about guarantee that January is going to be filled with, either for me working with these wind spirit cards that the artist is now painting, or my own personal ancestors' work. But that would seem to be, and everybody who does it, and hundreds of people have been doing it now, would say that never fails, that's the energy that their month reveals to themselves.
Wow.
So that might be La Mo Mo for January, and then for February I pull Enlil, the Wind of Destiny, and trusting divine timing. So it gives you a sense and a purpose for the month as it unravels.
So where do we go? You mentioned your website a few times. So what is that website?
All right, so the wind spirit cards, if you want to download them, are at thepracticalshaman.com. Open any blog. So just pick a blog. There's hundreds of them, and there's a way of downloading free wind spirit cards there. There's also, if you like the wind spirit bag and everything, you can order that from our store. It comes, we have a wind whistler toolkit that comes, this is, if you're really getting excited, comes with the book, this, and your wind spirit cards. So you're all set, you're ready to go. You started out the year as a wind whistler.
I mean, I'm ready to become a wind whistler. I couldn't believe how the wind felt when you called it forth, because it had such sturdy presence.
It was. And it's funny that La'amo'omo comes today because there's the volcano going on in Hawaii at the time too. And to tap into that energy from how ancient it is, or that it hasn't erupted. And I know you're listening to this a little bit later, but it didn't erupt for 38 years. And isn't that an ancestor?
Wow. I mean, there is there is a story, of course, being unfolded. And, as you speak, Renee, and I'm sure this is that, well, I shouldn't say sure, but this may be true for you listening as well. My bones are resonating. And it's like, like these winds blows through the center of the bones, just feels, I can feel it all through my body. So I'm just so intrigued and excited by this work that you have come to channel forth and gift us. It's extraordinary.
And it's so funny because if you think about it, one of the other wind metaphors is bone chilling, a bone chilling wind.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just endless if you think about it, how often, and wind spirits, holy ruach, Holy Spirit, they're wind. They're wind, and you can have a direct revelation with them. And that's what my work is about, is how to access that information for yourself.
It's beautiful, Renee. So I'm curious, you've already given us so many gifts in this conversation, but would you be so kind as to perhaps invite a wind for those of us listening, like, kind of like, what is our healing wind? Like, those who have come into this moment, what is the wind for us? For all of us.
Right. This is very interesting. So I was talking about Mate, the Latvian wind of nourishment, and it's about taking time to replenish. So my guess is a lot of people, because our souls are exhausted. This has been a couple of years of really strenuous times, and I think that we are all ready to go forward. And what we forget in this going forward is that vacation, they rest, is nourishment. I mean, so many people, including myself, haven't been on a vacation in a few years. And personally, I'm going from Washington to Palm Springs for the winter because I need that dry desert heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you going to replenish yourself in the coming year? I'm just going to read you a little bit from the book about Mate, the Latvian Wind Mother. Nourishment. Invoke the Wind Mother when you need comfort and divine intervention. The nature-loving serfs who occupied the remote lands east of the Baltic Sea had little interest in outside world affairs and kept their traditions underground for generations. The knowledge was passed in the form of folklores, provided transgenerational continuity and insight into the serf's sacred relationship with nature. They were preserved through song. And optimism lies at the core of the Latvian nature worship. The Wind Mother offers an endless supply of goodness, which is available to those who pay homage to nature. Everything is possible when you take responsibility for your actions, climb a mountain, and sing your praises for the gifts she has bestowed upon you. And can I blow her in for all of you so you can receive that nourishment?
Oh, it made me tear up.
Don't you think it's kind of, and for those of you who are listening, did you notice that the winds that I called when we were just talking randomly are what came out of this bowl? I mean, this bowl has several decks of these. Every time I do a workshop, I open a new deck and throw it in here. But what are the chances of the winds that we spoke about being the winds that we needed to hear and feel today?
Yeah.
That wasn't planned.
Yeah. That was created.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I like that. That was created. Love that.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. Before we close, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our wonderful audience of Energy Magazine lovers?
We just really appreciate that there's a place for the kind of articles and the work that is being, carried on over at Energy Magazine. And it's been an honor to write and, really create with you or co-create something together that's meaningful. And whenever I share that, people just love their Energy Magazine. So today my shout out is for you.
Oh, Renee, thank you so much. It's just always a pleasure. I can't wait for our next conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Amelia.